And another tactic being done by the government, and this is something that they're going to do in the future, is to partner or force businesses or the private sector to implement no vaccine, no entry policy. And this news coming from ABS-CBN. So let's hear from this news.
Ikaw ang restaurant na ito, kaya maraming staff walang trabaho. Sina Jacqueline at Margie, bawas din ang araw na may pasok, kaya lumiit ang sweldo.
Tipid-tipid po nasa mga limit sa bahay. Opo, para po magkasya yung budget.
May mga binabayaran din po sa bahay, like nangungupahan po, ilaw, kuryente, kaya malaki po talaga yung impact.
Pero sakaling matanggal ng ECQ at umakyat sa 60% ang vaccination rate sa Metro Manila, ipinapanukala ni Presidential Advisor Joey Concepcion na bakunado lang ang pwedeng pumasok sa mga restaurants, malls, spa at iba pang establishmento. Ang mga unvaccinated, bahay-trabaho lang ang biyahe.
They will not be locked down in their house alone. No? May mga trabaho naman sila. No? Pero yung kung papasok sila sa ibang lugar, baka delikado yan, no? Baka mahawa sila.
Pero may punto ang may-ari ng
Alright, I have a problem with this tactic or technique being done by the government, or that are being recommended to the government to do to force businesses to comply with this no vaccine card, no entry policy. First, okay, it's a general policy or understanding that the government cannot force people to be vaccinated. And even DOH said that vaccination is mandatory, although we have an existing law or Republic Act in this country forcing or requiring children and toddlers and babies to be vaccinated. But when it comes to this issue of coronavirus vaccination, there is no law mandating, compulsory vaccination. But the thing is, what the government can do is that it can force businesses to comply with the no vaccine, no entry policy. So that's one. The second way, the first technique or way that's being used by the government is ECQ. ECQ will force people to be vaccinated. The second way is fascistic move, which is to force or partner with the private sector to require vaccination for their employees and customers. So basically, the business sector is gonna act as a state actor, and this reminds me of the case filed by the libel case or defamation case filed by President Trump versus the big tech in America, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, etc. So the former president Trump filed, in fact, it was a class lawsuit case, saying that in their case, they cited that these big tech were actually acting as a state actor. Because in America, for example, let me just give you a story, right, about the First Amendment in America. The government of America, or the U.S. government, cannot restrict or violate the First Amendment rights of its citizens. Okay, it cannot do so. The First Amendment right is actually a limitation on the government. But what the Biden administration did is that it forced or it did partner with Facebook and Twitter and Google to censor Trump and his supporters. That's exactly what they did. And in fact, there was this what we call press conference by Jen Psaki, the spokeswoman of the Biden administration in America, wherein she admitted that they are actually partnering with Facebook in order to censor people for disinformation, etc. But the question is, who defines disinformation, or what is the definition of disinformation? So it can be anything that can be anything. According to Facebook, I've had some of my posts flagged by Facebook that it can be anything that is against CDC or WHO rules, when in fact CDC and WHO has been wrong all the time about its predictions and information that's been feeding the public. So this tactic is actually the vaccination or mandatory vaccination by the government partnering with the private sector, making the private sector state actors. All right. So first, the government. We all know that the government cannot force or mandate vaccination, but it can partner and force with businesses to require its customers to be vaccinated, which is something that I think is still unconstitutional or illegal, right? And all right, so as you can see, we have all this going on. Whether I'm not vaccinated yet, I believe I'm gonna wait for the new administration because election is around the corner, right? And I hope that we're gonna be electing a different. But I believe that even though we're gonna elect, an opposition government, they still have and they will still have the same ideology when it comes to vaccination, because we actually we don't have party ideology in this country. We have conflicting or opposing parties, but they actually vary only in terms of some minimal ideology or beliefs, but they're all statists. Okay, they have exactly or almost exactly the same ideology, left-leaning ideology or statist ideology when it comes to governing or running a government, right? So, all right, that's one thing that is very popular these days